Good morning and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us on Facebook today, thank you so much for giving us your attention. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. I'm your host, Pauline Joseph, and in honor of Mother's Day, today we're discussing motherhood and money. We have quite an array of guests today, and I can't wait to get into it. Today, our guests are Tonni Brodber, Racquel Moses, and Kathleen Galy.
Thanks, Pauline. Hi, my name is Kathleen Galy. I'm the Managing Director for ANSA Bank. I have two beautiful kids, an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. And I've spent about most of my career, 21 years here at ANSA Bank, mostly in the financial services sector. Happy to be here.
Thank you, and we're really going to count on that financial experience because we have a lot of questions about money, and usually the comment section has a few. So Racquel, can you give us a brief introduction as well, please?
Sure. My name is Racquel Moses. I'm the CEO of the Caribbean Climate-Smart Accelerator. We work on all things to support the Caribbean in closing its gap between our climate ambitions and where we'd like to be. I have two beautiful daughters, and they're 23 years apart. I'll say that. My older daughter doesn't like me to share how old she is, so but that's quite a gap. And it's just a pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, thank you so much, Racquel. And Tonni, let's just round it up and give us a brief introduction on your end.
Sure. My name is Tonni Brodber. I am a daughter of, I'm lucky, a blended family, two amazing fathers who have since passed. My stepmother's still here, and my mother, Rosina's daughter. I am a wife to Kashka, and I am the mother of two lovely little boys, 6 and 4. And I happen to also work at UN Women, where I'm the representative for the multi-country office. It's a mouthful, so don't stress yourself.
I want to delve right into it because a lot of people think 60 minutes is a lot, but when it comes to money, it affects us all. So as someone who does not have any kids, I want to talk about the financial impact. What was the thought process? What did that look like? Saying, hey, I'm about to take this journey and it's going to affect, because I have a lot of friends who don't have kids, and we kind of joking like, oh, we wouldn't be able to take these trips last minute like our friends because, they have kids, they have to make these plans. So give us a little insight of what that thought process was like when you're like, oh, wait, there's a tiny human coming.
All right, so I'm happy to take it. The reason I'm in climate is because of that financial decision, right? When I was having my second daughter, we were thinking about, what do we do? How do we prepare for college? How much money do we need to put away? What's college going to cost at that time? And as we were thinking through that process, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a report about climate change that said that we had 12 years left. And I looked at my husband and I said, listen, and at the time I was head of Microsoft for Trinidad. I said, listen, if I'm not working on this climate change issue, I can't sleep. We brought this child, or we're bringing this child into this world, and we're talking about something that's going to happen in 15 years. And in 12 years, we may be looking down the barrel of a climate crisis that we can't solve. So it changes your focus having children. And as much as it is expensive, I won't lie to anybody and suggest that it isn't. It definitely focuses your attention on what is most important, and then it helps you to make great financial decisions.
Such an interesting perspective, Racquel, from the climate change perspective, because that wasn't even my purview, but that makes so much sense, and thanks for sharing that information. So Kathleen, I know you wanted to jump in on that. You want to add to the conversation?
I'm going to change my answer since your one was so profound. I had my first child quite young, so I don't think I thought about the financial impact of it. We just got excited that we were expecting, and thankfully I had 9 months to prepare, right? The fact of the matter is children are expensive, raising them are expensive, and your priorities shifts as they shift. For me, I think the thing that struck me the most is I told my mother maybe when my second was born, so money started private school, private primary school, and Pampers and formula and everything else. I said, you never told me that we don't exist once we have kids. So it's about making choices. Parents naturally deprioritize themselves and they put their money to where it matters most, which is their children. You live your life through them.
And it's quite a sacrifice for you guys to make. So thank you so much for all the mothers out there, mine including. So I want to bring in Tonni onto the conversation as it relates to, obviously being a mother as well as being part of UN Women Multi-Country Office. What about budgeting? How did that affect you, and how do you see that in your role as well, affecting women?
So my journey is similar. I wasn't young. I was older when I had my children. And even then, I did not fully comprehend the financial impact that having children would have on my life. I had a lot of, dual income, no kids opportunities before. And since having children, and we had ours relatively close, they're 6 and 4, we try to meet every month and do a family budget. At the end of the year, we have a session, we call it a boardroom, and we sit down and we think, what are our goals, not only for the upcoming year, but in the long term, and how we're going to achieve them, both in terms of our time and our budget. So the monthly meetings are just checking to make sure we're on track, ensuring that the children's long-term goals are accounted for in terms of planning for their college, if they choose to go to university and college, planning for their extracurricular activities, etc. So we do our best that way with budgeting, but it was not something that I thought about practically until I was in the midst of it.
So I like that perspective of sitting down and having that conversation, because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't have those conversations with my parents, and I don't think it's due to any lack of them wanting to. I don't think they've ever experienced it. And for those who are watching this and might be thinking, well, I don't know how to start a budget, I don't know how to have this conversation, I'm going to direct this question at Kathleen. What advice do you have to those mothers? Because it's a lot of overwhelming behavior in terms of actions and requirements as a mother, and sometimes even further, you are being a single mother. No one's thinking that I have the time to sit down and have this conversation. What advice would you give to that person?
So for me, I'm not going to differentiate between a single income and a double income household. Budgeting means putting your life into your own realm, right? So the 50-30-20 rule is something I always live by. 50% goes to your needs, 30% to wants, 20% to savings. And if you're very disciplined about it, like Tonni, I had a friend that used to put all their bills in a jar. She'd sit at the end of the month and actually take out a pen and paper and start categorizing each one. If you're a pen and paper person, it works well, because actually visualizing where you're bleeding, where you're spending your money, helps you pull it back and be more mindful before you continue to make those impulsive purchases. For those of you who are not as organized, there are tons of apps out there. So I use something called Simply Wise Receipt. Everything I do, everything I purchase, I just scan the receipt, and it actually categorizes where the item, what category it should go into, and spits out a report for you at the end of the month. And we sit down together, my husband and I, and we actually look at it and make the adjustments based on what we're seeing. One of the other really key things is I've always automated my savings. Very early in my career, I got like a $700 increase. I'm making up the number. I don't remember what it was. But I was comfortable. I was living on what I was making. I really did not have a necessity for anything more. So I opened a second bank account at a different bank. I set up a standing order from my work payroll straight into that account, and the money just went there every month. Something I never needed, I never felt, I never saw. Fast forward 2 years later, I said, oh, this is quite a lot. When did that happen? I did not even know I was saving that much. So it makes sense. If you put principles in place that actually flush the money away before it ever touches your account, it really develops that habit and pattern, and it really builds the nest egg that you're looking for.
welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from YouTube, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. I'm your host, Pauline Joseph, and in honor of Mother's Day, today we're discussing motherhood and money. We're joined by Tonni, Racquel, and Kathleen. We're going to bring them back in because we have questions in the comments, so we want to just answer them. But before we do, I want to ask a quick question to Tonni about she mentioned earlier, if you missed anything at the beginning, that's okay. Once this live is completed, you could go on the replay on across the social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and you could check out the conversation. So she mentioned that she has 2 children, and they are 4 and 6, right, Tonni?
That is correct.
Okay, great. So at any point in time of your career, have you had to choose between part-time, full-time? And do you think that having kids affected your potential earning in the professional world?
Yes and yes, and I'll get into detail on this. I think to Racquel's point, who you choose to have children with is important. And again, to Kathleen's point, dual or single income, your budgeting is your budgeting. But in parenting, the village is real. You need a village. And when I had my children, luckily I work for a feminist institution. First, we had 6 months maternity leave, and we also offer father's leave. We also had an opportunity to sit down and think through with my bosses what kind of work day would be most relevant at the time when I come back to work, and what kind of breaks would I need. And as a result of that, I was able to have telecommuting into my workday way before we needed to do it for COVID-19. So by the time COVID-19 came, our office was able to continue to work. This was a modality we had already adopted. So it wasn't so much part-time, but it was a different way of working full-time. Then when it comes to affecting my income, because of the workplace I'm in, it didn't necessarily affect my income negatively, but I can see how it can, especially if you don't have a village to support with childcare. And this is something we work at UN Women, is supporting governments to better understand subsidized childcare, quality childcare, and why it's needed. I have an incredible mother, friends, and spouse who really take up the slack and it's not taking up slack because we've made these children together. These children are going to be contributing to the society, who contribute to these children's lives equally. And because of my becoming a mother, and when I was single, I used to get annoyed and offended at times when people said, well, as a mother, I'm not annoyed or offended, and I don't think single people should be. It does shift your perspective about time and priorities. And I love my work. I have to travel a lot. And I think I have become more effective with my time at work, which has made me go up for more promotions that I had in the past because I'm a mother, and I had to prioritize my time in a very different kind of way. So for me, at least, I've become much more effective, and I've had an enabling environment in which that has led to increased promotions. But that is not the reality for most women.
Thank you so much for that. I also recall while I was living in the UK, I got a job for a year because the person went on maternity leave. Because in the UK, it's a full year, which is things that we could only, aspire to. But I also thank all my friends and everybody else out there making kids, because you contribute to my pension. Thank you. So I will help. I will be the village. All right, so we have Lindsay in the comments mentioning, I call it the wash income. I think Lindsay is referencing something we spoke about earlier with finding money in your jeans. So I love that terminology. We may use that in the future. I think we have a question here from Vanessa for Kathleen, asking about the 50-30 rule, if it applies to gross or net income. You want to take that, Kathleen?
Net income. You can't count your tax. That's going to be pulled out regardless. So apply it on what you're taking home, and it'll give you a better way of budgeting this out.
Thank you so much for that, Kathleen. So the name of the receipt app, the also want to find out what that is, and it's Simply Wise, guys. The app is called Simply Wise, correct, Kathleen?
Correct. But if you actually Google financial planning applications, you get about 100 of them come. So don't worry about the name of that one in particular. There are thousands available. So just go online. It's amazing what the Googler can give you.
Yes, I know. The internet is more than social media and TikTok videos, guys. It's truly amazing. All right, so let's talk about this conversation around household responsibilities, because let's be honest, it was assigned to women, at the beginning of time. And when it comes to responsibilities, and it was mentioned by Racquel before, choosing a partner, but the reality is sometimes, I don't want to say mistakes, but we make decisions that may not necessarily help us into the future. So any advice for men out there who have to manage childcare and household responsibilities while pursuing their professional advancement?
I can jump. Well, yeah, Kathleen, you haven't spoken. You go ahead. I'll come after.
Okay, so for me, I remember my grandmother telling me a story. When she was about to give birth, she went to the nursing home with a midwife. And after the baby was born, they called her husband to tell her, oh, it's a boy, it's a girl. When I was growing up, my mother religiously took all 5 of us to every single extracurricular, dropped one and swimming, went to ballet with the next one, football with the next one, while my father was at work. And my kids' primary school, we have something called the St. Andrew's Dads, and they do $1 a day once a term. It's 10 o'clock in the morning to come and sell pizza and chicken tenders and brownies and cookies. There are about 8 dads that come with the St. Andrew's polo on over their shirt and tie and are very visible and present. You go to an extracurricular, and I'm not just talking about the boys that are doing football and cricket, so the dad is with them. My daughter would have done netball and cheerleading in St. Joseph's Convent. My husband was very present, and so were most of the other fathers. So the role of both women and men have quite evolved over the centuries. And if we are both vested in being breadwinners and contributing to the livelihoods that we have, then we're also both vested in being caregivers. So like your other panelists, I've had the privilege of having an amazing husband and a huge village. And every opportunity, every decision, everything that came up in our lives, we sat down and had a very open conversation, and it's not a one and done. Marriage is easy. It's real easy to coexist with somebody. Bringing children into the mix changes the dynamics of what you do, what you can do, who you need to think of. And we would literally sit down and say, okay, if I take this role, it means I'm going to be outside of town. Can you handle the picking up of the kids? Well, I can do 3 of the days, I can't do the other 2. And I created a little village. There are at least 6 people outside of my mom and my sister who, if ever I'm in a jam and I call, they both come to my help. They've been my kids' friends that we have bonded with over the years. Mm-hmm. At the drop of a ball, I can pick up the phone and call any of them, and I know they'll be there. So Trinidad culture, everybody has a tanty, everybody has a mother, everybody has somebody that they can lean on. We need to remove the embarrassment of asking for help, because we're all spinning out of control. Life is moving so fast. We need to support each other. And the same way I could call 6 of them, none of them would hesitate to call me if they needed help as well. So it's just about creating that village, creating space, sharing the minding of the home and the kids, sharing the contributing financially. It's just about a more balanced approach. And maybe that's why we only have 2 kids, because parents want to be more involved. We don't, your child wants to do extracurricular, your whole family's sitting down and present for every weekend that you're playing tennis, you're playing football, you're playing cricket. So it's about keeping your family size at small enough that it's manageable for the 2 of you. It's about balancing each other's workload. My husband's job is a little more flexible than mine, so the earlier pickups he does, the 3 days where my son stays late, I do, and we find our way.
Yeah, and I would just like to add, TikTok has also contributed to Rich Aunties. So, the village has grown. It's something to aspire to. Tonni, you wanted to add to that as well?
Look, Kathleen is amazing. I'm really glad to be able to be able to be on this panel with these amazing women, both Kathleen and Racquel. So she said a lot of the same thing. And I think it goes to a realization when you get married to do some internal work about what it is you understand about marriage and what you think your role is supposed to be in the marriage and what you think a woman is supposed to be and do. And when you realize I cannot necessarily do it all, and why should I be doing it all? Who can I help? Who can help me, and who can also I help? And I think delegation as well, if you have some extra disposable income, thinking about housekeepers or catering, calling a caterer once or twice a week if both you and your husband can't do it, getting someone to help you with cleaning the house on the chores. If you have that disposable income, finding a way to delegate so that you aren't responsible for every single thing, especially if you don't have a partner, a spouse. It may mean you may not get to play with a particular carnival band one year because you're putting additional money aside to this, but delegation and ensuring that if you have to pay at one point for that delegation is really critical for your sanity and your ability to be effective in your workplace and present for your children and partner.
Welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. If you're joining us from Facebook, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. I'm just going to bring in our guests today because we don't have much time and the quality of this content is stellar, guys. If you missed it, the live will end in about 10 minutes and you can check it on the replay. You could also head over to the comment section. It's either there or there, depending on where you're watching this. And you can sign up to be notified for the next live stream. So before the break, I asked a question. I'm just going to repeat it. So I just want to find out, what's the key takeaway from the discussion we've had? What would you like our audience to take away from this as it relates to motherhood and finances? So I would start with Racquel.
Hi, I think if there is anything that I want you to take away from this conversation is 3 really super quick things. You need to think about ways to increase your income, ways to decrease your expenses, and understand that the financial literacy of your children is your responsibility. Ways to increase your income. Yes, you can get a side hustle, but I think far too many women don't go after promotions or don't go after bigger positions because they feel like they can't because they are mothers. You are a mother, you will figure it out. Go after the job, go after the promotion, go after the position. You will figure it out on the back end. The second thing, how to decrease your expenses. You're going to have to take a naked look at your expenses. Where are you spending your money? And I think a lot of people hide behind, I don't want to know. Use the apps, figure out where you're spending your money. And if it's coffee at Starbucks, buy less. If it is KFC 3 times a week, maybe go down to 2. But figure out ways that you can decrease your expenses and that way allowing you to put aside more money. And then finally, and I think Kathleen provided such an excellent example, the financial literacy of your children. Yes, the government should do more. Yes, BATT is doing incredible work. But at the end of the day, it is your responsibility and we have to teach them as early as possible.
So 3 things. There are things you can do at the individual level, and Racquel has outlined those very clearly. There are also things that you need to ensure you are a part of in the way in which your company, if you're part of a broader organization, or even your government is functioning to support mothers. That is the talking to your MP about maternity leave and paternity leave, about subsidized childcare, about standards for childcare, and also ensuring that you are part of the village that you have said you are, Paula, that is there. Yes, having children is a choice, but that doesn't mean you should be alone in the choice because we are a community. So how can we better support parents along this path?
I'm going to change what I was going to say based on what Tonni just said. When Ethan joined Fatima, that's my youngest, the Fatima football team, the intercall side, won the North Zone and made it to the finals. Without any prompting, any conversation, the school would have arranged about 16 or 18 complimentary buses, let all the kids leave early, and rallied these young boys to go out and support. And I sat back. I'm a nerd. I actually wrote a letter to the principal, right? Because for me, it was profound. Our men are raised in a world where they rally around each other, they support each other. Sat in interviews where the managing directors from NAPS and the boy in front of us is from NAPS, and they immediately connect. They are built in a society where they strive on with each other, right? And that's why the past people's associations are so robust. Women, on the other hand, we still have in the back of our mind that there are limited amount of seats around the table. So we have innately taught each other to fight for those seats instead of really rallying around each other. And I don't think it's a government thing alone. I don't think it's for mothers alone. I think for women as a whole. We need to start cheerleading each other on. We need to start promoting and encouraging. We need to stop judging. I know housewives who feel guilt-ridden because they don't contribute to the finances and their husband's business is doing bad. I know working mothers who go home and cry because they had to miss their child's sports day because they had a meeting that they couldn't get out of. We need to release the guilt. We need to release the judgment. We need to release snickering the shoes around us and just be. It's about choices. There's no right, there's no wrong. Free yourself from the judgment and demand that as women we rally around each other. For me, I just want to give one piece of advice. You need to visualize what your financial freedom is, because it's different for each of us. What motivates us is different. Needs are different. Demands are different. And to visualize it, I'm going to look quite young when I say this, but actually do the visual board. Put the pictures of what that freedom looks like. Helps you prioritize what you need to do by when to achieve it. And cheerlead yourself on. Tick it as you accomplish each one. For each new thing you do, you're going to find something else you want to do. And it will continue to evolve. But visualize it, taste it, feel it, put it in your hands so that it's something that you could run after. So that is my number one piece of advice. And the other thing, and this is really for a few generations below, for my kids' generation, do not get tempted to live FOMO. We're living in a very social media driven world. And it's very easy to see what everyone else has. We need to start practicing simple gratitude and focus on what we have, not what we don't. And just that shift in mindset makes your list of wants shrink over and over and over. And it provides bandwidth as your children's lives evolve. They're going to need more, and you'll realize the rest of it is just not important.
Well, thank you so much for that, Kathleen. I think that was a great way for us to close this conversation. We do have an additional 2 minutes, and I have this question that I want to ask each one of you. It has a simple response. It's going to take you all the way back. But do you remember the first time you encountered money? What age were you? And having to have that transactional experience. Do you remember?
Yes.
Is this too hard a question? Yes.
No.
Okay. No.
No. So I worked every summer from the time I was 13 years old. And I got a travel stipend. It was $100 a month. Really, what do you do with $100? Absolutely nothing. And I used to see my friends all partying, liming, going from house to house. And my dad said, well, I have nothing to give you unless you work. So you want to turn up your nose at their $100, but you actually owe them $2,000 for teaching you this. So it was a very clear lesson. I would have played carnival at 16 years old. Again, Dad said, you could do what you want, but I am not wasting my money on a costume. So I worked all summer, worked in the mall, wrapping gifts all Christmas just to buy the costume. Unfortunately, for people today, costumes got a little expensive. In my days, it was a little cheaper. But it was we came from means, Pauline, but my parents always ensured we got everything we needed and we worked hard for what we wanted, right? You want something new? Okay, work for it. Work for it. You contribute and then I'll contribute, but I'm not just going to hand it to you. So I think those are some good things.
Okay, thanks for that transparency. Racquel, do you remember your first time?
Yeah, it was probably some 45, 46 years ago when I got money to go across the street and buy stuff from the parlor, right? And it's just about just making sure that you understand, that your children understand the value of money. I love that, we give our daughter money for Tuck Shop and she earns money for doing different things, but she's also responsible for how she spends the money. But yeah, I mean, I think when you're that age, you think money is unlimited. And I remember my first job though, where I was making like $4.65 in the US, $4.65 US an hour. And then there was a promotion available and I was like, ooh, when I'm making that $5.25 an hour, I'm gonna be rich. And then you realize when you get the money, it makes little or no difference. So it's just about understanding that every increment provides you with different context, and you really need to just put away the money and know that you keep striving to do more, to get to a higher level, to increase your financial security till you're in a place where you're comfortable. But I 100% agree with Kathleen on gratitude. You will attract so much more with gratitude.
Okay, and just to quickly close it off, Tanya, what's your first memory?
So I'm trying, but I think one of the things is I wanted to go to Disneyland when I was about 5 or 6. And my mother said, well, you'll have to earn it. And she said, look, I don't know if you all remember Auntie Hazel. Auntie Hazel has a show, so go forth. And so I went forth and I came third, and I thought that she was going to reward me for the effort. And she was like, no, you didn't get the money. And so, but she was very appreciative of the effort that I made. And she gave me a lot of kudos for the effort, not just the outcome. And it was a lesson in ensuring that you work hard, but the terms in which you enter a contract need to be favorable for you when it comes to money, because I should have gotten at least something for coming third.
I love that. I think that's a fantastic way to close off, because I'm just like, for all the 5-year-olds out there, when your parents tell you something, get it in writing, okay? Well, thank you so much for Tonni, Racquel, and Kathleen for joining us today and sharing insight into motherhood and money.